YouTube. Welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to go through all the Blu-rays and DVDs that I picked up in the month of March. Let's get straight to it. So first up, I picked up A Creature is Stirring, which sounds like a pretty good movie. This one, I think it's like two burglars and they break into a house, but a creature is stirring. So hopefully this will be a good creature feature film. It's one I want to watch. It's just that this one's set at Christmas time, and I just feel a bit weird watching a Christmas themed movie in March, but I'm going to have to put that to one side and check this one out. It does sound like an interesting one. So if any of you have seen A Creature is Stirring, let me know what you thought of this one. Next up, I picked up a movie called Below. This is a pretty good supernatural movie that takes place on a submarine. These like Americans, they pick up these stranded people on the ocean, bring them down into the submarine, but kind of weird, creepy things start to happen. I think on the back of this one, it's likened to something like Poltergeist meets U571, which is kind of a good description. But yeah, this one was good. I like the novel location of it being set on a submarine. It was kind of a bit limited by that setting, and it was maybe a little bit too long. But on the whole, I did like this one. It was pretty gripping in times, and I was kind of kept my attention to sort of find out what the reason was for the weird goings on down on this submarine, which is always a bit of a terrifying location anyway. So yeah, Below was pretty good. I did enjoy this one. Next up, I picked up Beyond Atlantis, which is more of like a fantasy adventure. It was okay. This one is like these people, they like diving for pearls, and they come across this like tropical island and this Atlantis kind of place under the sea, and it's kind of home to these like googly-eyed inhabitants and this kind of goddess woman that lives on the island. It's alright. It's worth watching for Sid Haig. He's in this. He plays a really kind of sort of shady but likeable kind of businessman, if you will, but he puts in a good performance. But this one, it's hard to take serious because of the inhabitants. They have these sort of just giant googly eyes. They look like characters from The Simpsons or something like that, so they did kind of make me laugh. But yeah, Beyond Atlantis, it's alright. It's kind of boring, but it passed a bit of time. Kind of Sunday afternoon viewing. I'd say this one is an okay film. Picked up some more anime for the horror collection with Blood Sea, which is one that I don't know much about, but I've heard it's got lots of monsters in it and it's quite bloodthirsty, so that was enough to sell me into this one. Doesn't get the best reviews amongst the anime community, but from the stills and things that I saw, I thought it looked pretty cool, and I'm not really knowledgeable enough on anime to weigh in all that much on these kind of things, but I'm definitely going to check it out, and hopefully it's got some cool monsters in it and some blood and gore, and that should be enough to get me through this one. But yeah, always nice to pick up a bit of anime for the collection. Next up, I picked up Border. I've only just got this one in, and it's only a film that I've just come across, to be honest. I think this is a bit of like a weird kind of fantasy-like movie, but I don't know anything else about it, so apologies I can't say anything more about it, but it does look like quite an interesting one. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought of it. Next up from Shudder, I picked up The Cleansing Hour. This one sounds pretty good. Haven't watched this one yet. I have watched quite a few of these movies, just need to get to them. But The Cleansing Hour sounded pretty cool, sounded pretty scary. I think this is like these sort of TV hosts or something that do fake exorcisms, but then just kind of happen upon a real exorcism situation, and it all gets quite terrifying and out of hand. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this one pans out. Next up, I picked up Cobweb. This is a fairly new horror film. I've seen quite a few people picking this one up. I've heard some good reviews about it, heard some mixed reviews, but again, it's one that I'm really looking forward to checking out. It looks pretty creepy. I thought that cover was creepy on this one, so yeah, looking forward to checking out Cobweb. Next up from Brain Damage, I picked up Creature Feature. This was a pretty good little movie. It's an anthology, all set around sort of like Halloween, all very like Halloween themed, and it's got some about 4 or 5 segments in it. They're all pretty good, pretty average, but mostly enjoyable. It's got like a killer scarecrow in it that was pretty cool, a killer clown. I think there's a werewolf thing in it as well. So yeah, nothing all that incredible, but if you like your Halloween themed anthologies, quite a few of them out now, I don't think you'll be too disappointed in this one. As I say, it's nothing incredible, but it is entertaining, and yeah, if you like your anthology films, I think you'll definitely get some enjoyment out of this one. Next up from Scream Factory, I picked up Daughters of Satan. This is another one I've just got in. Saw this really cheap on eBay, very cheap for a Scream Factory Blu-ray, so just got on it straight away and picked it up, but not seen this one yet. I think this has got a young Tom Selleck in it, and it's all about kind of like witchcraft and witchery and things like that. So this will be an interesting one, hopefully, from the early 70s, if I remember correctly. Next up is a film that I've wanted to get for a long time. Finally managed to find it on eBay for a decent price. And this is an old school Anchor Bay label, so good to get this one in. This is a horror comedy called Dead and Breakfast, and I really enjoyed watching it. After all these years of looking for it, it was good to find it and get enjoyment from it. This is a film from the early 2000s, and it's a bunch of friends on the way to a wedding. They stay at this bed and breakfast, but they get embroiled in a bit of a zombie plague. All the locals in this sort of rural town start to get turned into zombies, and they attack the bed and breakfast, and the owners get killed and things like that. It's pretty wild. It's quite gory in places. It is pretty funny in places as well. Decent cast as well. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's in this. Jeremy Sisto, he's in this as well, and a few other familiar faces. Yeah, it's got a bit of like a sort of a Dead Alive kind of feel to it, but not as kind of gory and hard hitting as that one. But yeah, I thought this was a suitably enjoyable kind of comedy horror, but quite silly in places, but quite gory in places. The zombies look pretty cool. So yeah, if you like sort of the more slapstick side of horror comedy, I think you might enjoy this one. And this one's a cool release as well, because it comes with the slipcover, and it's the lenticular case as well. Managed to find that. So yeah, really cool to finally get Dead and Breakfast. And like I say, it was pretty funny, and I got some enjoyment out of it as well. Next up from the more modern Anchor Bay label, we have The Demented, which was just a little kind of zombie movie again. This one plays it a bit more serious. It's these friends that rent out this beach house, and a zombie plague breaks out, and it's just about them kind of fighting off the zombies and that kind of thing. This is alright. It's got some decent moments. The zombies in it look pretty good. It's got a really strange ending. Without giving anything away, it's got quite a downbeat, disturbing ending, but it plays out with the most kind of silly, upbeat music. It was really quite jarring. It was a very strange ending to this one. But yeah, it's okay. I've kind of forgotten most of it now, but as I was watching it, I was entertained enough. It's alright if you want kind of a middle of the road standard zombie film. Next up, and yes, I did go for it, I picked up Exorcist Believer. Went into it with an open mind, went into it actually wanting to enjoy this film, give it a chance. Gotta say, I found it as awful as what most people have found this one. I didn't like it, unfortunately. I thought it was pretty terrible. As a film in general, I just thought it was weak. It was a weak movie, didn't really do anything new or original. All the possession scenes just seemed very almost laughable in places, or were done with kind of an empty shock value that just didn't work. And considering that this has spawned from, in my opinion, the greatest horror film ever that still has an incredible power about it, this one was just such a watered down, almost amateurish attempt at trying to recreate what the original film did. The dialogue in it was pretty awful. Ellen Burstyn was terrible in this film. She had a real kind of, I don't know, she makes a couple of really sarcastic, bitter remarks about the her original experience, and considering 2 priests died to save her daughter, I would have thought she would have had a different outlook on it than sounding off these snarky remarks. But the whole film just didn't work for me, and a lot of it just seemed so contrived. Like there was a lot of hark back to the original film, and a few scenes that were recreated that were nods to the original, and it just seemed like just a very kind of disingenuous attempt to throw things in to try and remind us that this is an Exorcist film. I didn't like it at all. Depressingly bad, really. So, as I say, didn't want to hate on it. Thought I'd give it a chance, but all the negative things that I've heard about it, I have to agree with it. Sadly, I think it was a really weak film and a pretty offensive little attempt to cash in on the original, which is still great. So not one that I can recommend, unfortunately. Next up, from Indicator, I picked up The Eyes of Laura Marsh, and I see this one around all the time. It's always in HMV, it's always on eBay when I go on there. So I thought, let me pick this one up and check it out. And I did really enjoy this film. This was a really well done, stylish horror movie. This one is Faye Dunaway, and she's a fashion photographer, and she keeps getting these visions, these really strong, violent visions of her friends and colleagues being killed by an unseen killer, and then, true to form, they are found brutally murdered a few moments after she gets these visions, and she's trying to work out what's going on. Tommy Lee Jones is the detective that's assigned to the case, and he's really good. One of the reasons I wanted to watch this was to see a young Tommy Lee Jones, and he plays a fantastic part in this movie. And I just like this one. I like the style of it. It kind of reminded me of like a Dress to Kill kind of movie, like one of these American Giallo De Palma type films. Played out really well. So it was good to finally check this one out, and I really like what they did in this movie. I thought it was a good one. Next up is a double feature from Troma. This is Flesh Eaters from Outer Space and Invasion for Flesh and Blood. 2 great titles there. And oh man, these are terrible, amateurish, really silly monster movies shot on video. But oh my goodness, these were so entertaining and had so much charm about them. It's these kind of cool looking monsters, rubber suited monster kind of effect. And they come down from space, although they then go into the ocean and then come up onto the shore and start attacking people in this New Jersey town. And this kind of macho hero is on the trail of these aliens. I say he's on the trail, but he cannot find them at all throughout the whole film. They seem to run into every member of the town and kill them, but the hero can't seem to catch up with them. This one is just a real laugh. I watched both of these films with a friend of mine, and we both really liked them. I think me in particular, because I just go weak at the knees at silly B-movie monster films, and these two were just absolutely fantastic. The creatures get lots of screen time. There's some good gooey effects. There's a really cool rock and roll soundtrack in this one. Some of the characters are really cool, although the acting's awful. And in these movies, it just felt like they were having just a real blast whilst making these films and just throwing everything out there that they could think of. The second one in particular is insane, in which even the main character turns into kind of like a kaiju robot character and starts fighting these monsters. But it's all just super low budget, amateurish, thrown together, laughable acting, awful script. But oh my goodness, I just had so much earnest horror movie, monster movie fun watching these. They were an absolute delight. So 2 movies that really go under the radar. They're very obscure, but if you can track down this double feature and you like Z-grade creature features, you should have a blast with this one. They were both really awesome. Next up is an interesting looking movie. Not watched it yet, but this is Freeze Frame, which is like a dark psychological paranoia type film. But sort of most notably, it stars Lee Evans in the lead role. Now in the UK, Lee Evans is one of the biggest comedians in this country. He does a very kind of energetic kind of comedy routine. So I'm very interested to see him in this very quite dark and psychological horror film. So yeah, looking forward to checking Freeze Frame out. It sounds really interesting. Next up, I picked up Haunted Honeymoon. This is like a Gene Wilder comedy horror film. In this one, he goes to this big creepy mansion. I think he's got some inheritance or something, but he's going to this mansion and seeing all the family. It's a big, dark, gothic place, and just kind of silly, scary hijinks go on. It's pretty funny. Not the funniest Gene Wilder film that I've seen, but I did really like this one, and some of the horror moments in it were pretty good. Pretty good cast in this one as well. And then there's also like a subplot with a werewolf running around the grounds attacking people as well, and he was really cool. Actually reminded me a little bit of like a Paul Naschy type werewolf, so that was pretty good. So yeah, good to see this one. I've known about this film for a long time, and as far as like horror comedies go, I thought this one was a pretty enjoyable one. Another horror comedy, one I've never seen until now, I picked up The Haunted Mansion with Eddie Murphy. I think they've done another one of these movies recently. It might have been what spurred me to pick this one up. But yeah, this one was okay. It's like a Disney movie. Eddie Murphy is like a real estate agent working with his wife. And he takes his wife and family to another big, creepy gothic mansion. I think they want to put it on the market, but it's a haunted mansion. So all this kind of creepy, wild stuff goes on. It's okay. It's got some good moments, got some funny moments. Eddie Murphy's always great in whatever he does. And Terence Stamp is in this as the creepy butler, so it was great to see him in that kind of role. I can kind of see why this movie never did great business. It's not incredibly good, but it was entertaining enough. It does have some really good looking zombie effects in it. I'll give the film that. The zombies in this look fantastic, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, this was okay, kind of like PG horror. I had a fun time with it. Next up, some more light-hearted stuff actually. An animated movie here with The Haunted Pumpkin of Sleepy Hollow. I wanted to check this one out for quite a while. I love anything to do with Sleepy Hollow. And this is like a cartoon from the early 2000s, so quite nostalgic sort of type animation and that kind of thing. It's really good to watch this one. Took me back to kind of being a bit of a kid back in those times. And this one is just these kids in Sleepy Hollow that have to do something to stop the Headless Horseman coming back. It's just a fun little enjoyable cartoon. I think it's only about 40-50 minutes long, so it passed a bit of time and was just nice to, as like I say, watch a bit of a throwback kind of animated creepy horror film. But this one would be definitely good for like Halloween and that kind of thing. So yeah, if you've got like, I don't know, younger people in the house, or you want to watch something a bit more mild, this is a fun one to throw on. Next up, I picked up The Haunting of Bly Manor. This was a TV show on Netflix, I think. Looks like a really good, creepy, atmospheric, sort of gothic kind of series. So I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. I want to sort of put this on when I've got time to commit to it and watch all of the episodes, because it certainly looks like my kind of show. And I love the look of like the old kind of ancestral big creepy house. So yeah, hopefully this one will be a good one. And then in addition to The Haunting of Bly Manor, I picked up its sort of precursor show with the Haunting of Hill House. This one was originally on Netflix. Now, I did watch quite a bit of this show and did enjoy it, so I'm really wanting to watch the whole thing. I have watched a few of the episodes so far, and I'm enjoying going through it. Pretty creepy stuff. A lot of the scares and things, you can kind of see them coming, and they're pretty predictable and sort of, you know, quite traditionally worked in terms of kind of creepy haunted house settings, but they are effective and they are really scary. So yeah, I'm enjoying going through this. And Henry Thomas is in this as well, which is good to see him. He doesn't pop up in that many things, but when he does, I always enjoy his acting. So yeah, I'm enjoying going through The Haunting of Hill House. It's a pretty good show. And then next up, in my quest to own all of the Hellraiser films, I picked up Hellraiser Judgment. This is the second to last one. I just need to get the last one now, then I've got all of them. These Hellraiser sequels, man, they're tough going. This one, I didn't think it was a good film. You can tell I think it's been cobbled together from a different film. It more plays out as this really weird detective film. It felt a little bit like Seven. There's a serial killer going around killing people. In this one, it's based on the Ten Commandments. But there's some really strange stuff in this. Some really kind of weird, icky imagery and things going on. Pinhead's not in it very much. As with a lot of these Hellraiser sequels, the Hellraiser moments and the bit with the Cenobites are really good, but it's very fleeting. They only kind of really come out towards the end, and they do a lot in this one with like the world of hell and the lore behind it, and sort of Pinhead's procedures for getting people and killing them. But it's very weird, and I didn't care for that aspect all that much. I will say I did like the guy who played Pinhead more than the one in the previous film, Revelations. That was awful. Probably the worst Hellraiser sequel. This Pinhead was a lot better. I found him a lot more captivating. He had a pretty good voice, but he just wasn't in it enough for me. The Hellraiser aspects were pretty good, but the movie itself I didn't care for all that much, unfortunately. Next up, I picked up House of the Dead 2. I don't expect this one to be good at all. I know the first one is infamously bad, but I found this cheap. I'll check it out of curiosity. It might surprise me. It might be okay. But yeah, I saw this one, as I say, for not much money and thought I'll grab it for the collection. So yeah, House of the Dead 2. Who knows with this one? I don't know what I'm getting. Next up, I picked up Invaders from Mars, the 1980s remake, directed by Toby Hooper. Really good to get this one. I think this has been re-released on Blu-ray because it was always really hard to get. It went for crazy money. So when I saw this was coming out again, I definitely wanted to get on Invaders from Mars. I have watched this one. It's a really fun 80s kind of sci-fi horror. It's got some really good practical alien effects. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out again. It's been a while and I'd like to sort of remind myself about this one, but it's a really fun 80s movie. So yeah, if you've not picked this one up yet, definitely do so, because I don't know, the last Blu-ray just seemed to sell out really quick and went for a lot of money. So yeah, nice to see this one available again. And then another movie I was really happy to see get a re-release is Leviathan. This was released by Scream Factory a few years ago, and that Blu-ray was long out of print and went for a lot of money, but Kino have released the 4K, so great to get this and check this one out again. This is like an underwater monster movie. It's basically Alien underwater. Peter Weller heads up this sort of deep sea diving crew, and they come across this weird submerged Russian ship. They check it out, and then they bring this creature back onto their ship, which starts to kill them off one by one. But it's quite like it sort of gets inside the body and under the skin. There's some quite gooey body effects and things like that. A little bit of it reminded me of The Thing. So really good to watch this one. It takes a while for it to get going. It's about 50 minutes until the creature comes into it. But when it does, it's a really cool looking creature. All practical effects. It was done by Stan Winston. Good cast in this as well. Peter Weller, Richard Crenna, Daniel Stern, Ernie Hudson, a few others as well. So yeah, great to see Leviathan do the rounds again. So yeah, if you like, as I say, if you like Alien and a bit of The Thing underwater, definitely check this one out. It's a good film. Next up from Brain Damage, I picked up Night Fangs. This was okay. It's very low budget. It's these two women vampires that like lure people back to their house to sort of like kill them and drink their blood and bathe in their blood, that kind of thing. It's alright if you can look past the low budgetness. There's a bit of like blood in it and some cool vampire moments, but there is some drawn out scenes of talking and things like that. But one of the guys is like a professor that they enlist to help them kill the vampires, and I think his name was Professor Nashi, which I thought was a nice touch, now linking it to Paul Nashi, so that was pretty alright. So yeah, this movie was okay. Next up from Scream Factory, I picked up Night of the Demons 3, Really looking forward to checking this one out again. I watched this movie a long time ago, probably when I was an early teenager, and it wasn't even called this. I think it was under the title Demon House. And I actually really enjoyed it. It was a cheap DVD that I watched, and I was surprised how much I did like it, and then came to realise not too long ago that it was also Night of the Demons 3. So it's been such a long time since I've seen it that, yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching this again. And it's a really nice Blu-ray from Scream Factory. So, yeah, this is a cool one, and completes my Night of the Demon collection as well. So, yeah, great to get this one for the collection. Next up from Rero Video, this is quite a recent release of them. This is Night of the Devils. Not heard of this until they released this one on Blu-ray. Sounds like a bit of a weird kind of Euro horror type film. Got like a few sort of dream sequences and weird stuff going on in this one from what I've read. I'm intrigued to check it out. I will watch it soon. Hopefully this will be a good one. I think this is the first release I've picked up from them with their UK releases. So yeah, it's a pretty nice release. You get a book and things like that. So yeah, hopefully this one will be a good one. This one's an interesting purchase. This was more old school Anchor Bay, and I've not heard of this one before. This is The Quick and the Undead. So like kind of a Western zombie film. The movie itself was okay. It's sort of like just these cowboys in this Western town, and they're fighting zombies and each other and things like that. It was okay. But I was just interested in this because I'd never come across the film before, and anytime I see something that's old school Anchor Bay, I'm always going to try and pick it up. And yeah, looking into this one, I think it's a long out of print title and goes for quite a bit of money. So yeah, this one just kind of came out of nowhere, and yeah, I swooped in on this. So interesting movie. Always good to add some Anchor Bay to the collection. So yeah, not a film that I'd say is fantastic and you need to see it, but if you're a collector of these old school labels, this one's definitely an interesting title. Next up from Severin, I picked up Satan's Baby Doll. This one was a pretty slow and dreary little Euro horror film from the early 80s, I believe. It feels like a 70s film. I think it's early 80s. And this one, I think this was originally like a pretty X-rated movie. But that's all been taken from the film. It's all been cut out, leaving for quite a risible experience, unfortunately. Not really a lot going on in this one, or any reason to watch it with everything being cut out. It takes place in a pretty cool Gothic castle. There's some quite good kind of Euro horror sensibilities, and I like the Gothic location. But yeah, this one's pretty slow. Not a lot to see here, unfortunately. Next up, I got Shark in Venice, so another cool B-movie shark film to add to the collection. This one was actually given to me by a friend of mine, so thank you very much to him. I will check this out soon. I'm going to the beach soon, so I might take this with me to watch there. So yeah, I'm sure I'll have some fun with this one. I always like my my shark movies, so yeah, Shark in Venice. Hopefully it'll be a fun one. Next up, we have Stanley, a drive-in favourite from the early 70s. Now this one, it's a William Grefé film. Now I've got to say, I'm not a William Grefé fan. I don't typically like his movies. I have the box set of his films and found all of them to be terrible, if I'm honest. Stanley was okay. It's probably the best William Grefé film that I've seen, although the bar isn't that high. But this is about a guy, not called Stanley, that's the name of the snake actually. This guy who lives with and can kind of control snakes. He has a bit of a bond with them. And anyone that kind of crosses him or does wrong by him or gets into an altercation gets killed off by these snakes. So yeah, very outdated now. If you are scared of snakes, this film will probably terrify you because he has snakes all over him. The victims have got snakes crawling all over them. There's snakes everywhere you look. So yeah, that will get you if you are scared of them. But yeah, this one was okay. It's crazy how many arguments this guy manages to get into in this quiet backwoods setting. But yeah, there's kind of like petty criminals and gangsters and all kinds of unpleasant people that keep crossing his path who end up getting bitten by these snakes and things like that. So yeah, it was a good, fun sort of, as I say, like grindhouse drive-in movie. I did like it for that. It's definitely a watchable film, which not all of his films are for me. So yeah, Stanley was okay. It was pretty cool. Next up, I picked up Suitable Flesh. I think this is another new release. Sounds interesting. It's Heather Graham, and I think it's quite gory and pretty crazy. So yeah, this is what I'm looking forward to. I've heard mixed reviews, but yeah, I'm hoping I'm going to enjoy this one. Next up, from Scream Factory, we have Super Beast from the early 70s. This is one of these movies that was cheaply made in the Philippines, but this one is an absolute bore fest. Really tedious to get through. Just people walking around and talking. The creatures in it don't really come into it hardly at all. A little bit at the end, but it's so boring to get through. I kept thinking while I was watching this one, like, how can a film called Super Beast be so boring? But yeah, this one really is hard to get through. Yeah, a real snooze fest. Unfortunately, not one that I can recommend. This one's an interesting pickup. This is the Tales from the Crypt Keeper, which was an animated series of Tales from the Crypt. Never come across it before, but I found this one. It's got a few episodes on, and I enjoyed watching this. It plays out very similar to the Tales from the Crypt episodes. Usually there's some character or characters that are a bit unscrupulous or morally questionable, and they kind of get their comeuppance in a supernatural or kind of gruesome way. And it plays out in the same way in these. They're just a bit more kind of light-hearted because they're animated and more for kids. But yeah, it was good to watch this one. It's hosted by the Crypt Keeper, again, albeit an animated Crypt Keeper. But yeah, I enjoyed watching this. If you like Tales from the Crypt, it's definitely an interesting thing to pick up. And yeah, I'm sure you'll get some enjoyment out of it, like with the shows. So yeah, good to come across this one. I did like it. Next up, I picked up Talk to Me. Now, I know this got a lot of acclaim when this came out. A lot of people saying this was a fantastic horror movie. I gotta say, I hated it. I really did not like this film at all. This has maybe the most annoying characters in any horror film that I've ever seen. Just these horrible, irritating teenagers. Every single one of them was unlikable. Whenever they're on screen, I just couldn't stand any of them. They were horrible and ruined the film. I didn't even really like the story either. They have this hand, it's a bit like a monkey's paw kind of thing, and they hold it and they can converge with spirits in the other world. They possess their bodies whilst they're holding it, and they kind of do this as like a party trick, and that's it. They just all gather around and do this weird possession thing. But it does have some dire consequences as the movie goes on. But my goodness, I just found all the characters in this insufferable. There was a couple of good horror moments, a couple of people that got possessed, and it got quite intense, quite violent, and the possession effects and things like that were pretty good and pretty scary. But my goodness, yeah, as I say, I just hated everyone in this. Those teenagers in this film were awful. And I didn't like it. So not the great movie that I've heard from other people. Yeah, I really disliked this film, unfortunately. Next up, I picked up Thanksgiving and had a blast watching this. Really liked it. It's a modern slasher film, but it had a feel of like a 70s slasher film. I think particularly because it was set around a holiday, around Thanksgiving. I've not seen that for a while in a slasher film, I don't think, and I really like that. The opening to this film is like pretty brutal and quite disturbing, where this department store, there's a massive customer riot. They all lose their minds over this Thanksgiving sale, and rush the store, and there's a few deaths and a lot of quite brutal injuries. It's really quite distressing, and that's the catalyst for what brings this killer around. Killing people off a year later that were involved in it. But yeah, really cool film. The killer's got like an outfit and a mask, which I always like. Some great deaths in it, some really good gore. So yeah, I thought Eli Roth did a pretty good job with this one. It's a rather enjoyable modern slasher film, and like I say, I liked harking back to a slasher film that was themed around a holiday. That was good to see. So yeah, Thanksgiving, I can definitely recommend this one. I did enjoy this as a modern slasher film. Next up, I picked up a really weird little movie called Tickles the Clown, which was mainly like this, I think it's an animated, computer-generated film, filmed in space, where they're interrogating this clown who's imprisoned on this spaceship prison thing, and they want him for something. I can't even remember now. It's a weird film, very kind of just loosely put together. It's one of those where the mouth doesn't match what they're saying. The animation's often repeated. Even the synopsis on the back of this is spelt incorrectly, and some of the subtitles are spelt incorrectly. So I don't think a lot of work has gone into this one. It was a random one that I came across on eBay for cheap, but didn't like it. Not one that I would recommend, unfortunately. It's a bit weird. Next up, I picked up Truth or Dare. This is the Blumhouse movie. Thought this was pretty good. I did like this one. Wasn't sure what it was going to be like, but on the whole, I did think this was a pretty good movie. There's a bunch of teenagers that play this Truth or Dare game, but it kind of follows them back. So they, next few days, they start getting texts and things from an unknown presence asking them truth or dare, and they've got to go for it, and they have to tell the truth or do the dare. If they don't, they will die a gruesome death. And it's pretty good. There's some pretty catchy situations in this. Like, one of them is a dare to smash their friend's hand with a hammer, and it's like, if you don't do it, you're going to die. So yeah, some pretty intense situations in this, and it was interesting to see how they tried to unravel the mystery of this game and what they sort of did to stay alive, and how they sort of played the game and things like that. So yeah, I did like this one for what it was. Yeah, they got themselves into some crazy situations, I'll say that. So yeah, not a bad one. I did enjoy this movie. Next up, I picked up the Twilight People. Don't know much about this one. I think this is another cheap film from the Philippines. So yeah, this one could go either way on whether this one's good or not. But yeah, I've come across it a few times, but yeah, don't know anything about what it's like or anything like that. I think it might have a young Pam Grier in it, which will be fun to see. But yeah, if anyone's seen the Twilight People, let me know what you thought of this one. Next up, I picked up The Unfamiliar. I'm not actually familiar with this movie. This was just a blind buy off eBay. Looks like it'll be a pretty creepy one. So yeah, hopefully I'll get a few scares and that from this one. Yeah, I'll be checking this one out soon. Hopefully it'll be all right. Next up, from Full Moon, I picked up Voodoo Passion. This one is a Jess Franco film, so you never know what you're going to get with this. It could be so bad it's unwatchable, or it could be wildly entertaining. You never quite know with Jess, so I'm intrigued to see this. I won't have my expectations set too high, but you never know. He does come up with some interesting movies every now and again. So yeah, don't know much about this one. I think it's a fairly new release from Full Moon. But yeah, Voodoo Passion, I will check it out soon. Next up, I picked up The Wailing. This one's recently come out on 4K. I've heard some good things about this one. I'm really wanting to check this one out. I think it's a really long film. I think it's like 2.5 hours long at least. So I haven't had the chance to watch this one yet. But I'm certainly going to check it out. As I say, I've heard it's really good. And I don't know much else about it beyond that. So yeah, this one should be a good one. If you've seen this one, again, let me know what you thought. Next up, I picked up one of the few Hammer horror films that I don't own, The Witchers. So looking forward to watching this one very soon as well. I need to get some of these movies watched. But yeah, never even seen this one. So this is a Hammer film that is an untapped resource for me. So this is an exciting pickup. Next up, from Arrow, I picked up The Wizard of Gore, Herschel Gordon Lewis's movie. I think I do have this in a Herschel Gordon Lewis box set, but I wanted to get it as its own release for the collection. I have seen this one many, many years ago, but it'd be good to revisit this. I don't remember much about it. I remember it being really kind of tacky and low budget, but if I remember right, the wizard magician character was quite an interesting character, and sort of chewed up the scenes quite a bit. So yeah, looking forward to revisiting this one. Next up, from IFC, I picked up The Wretched. This one was pretty good. This is a movie, it takes place in like this little suburban area, and there's like this malevolent presence that's haunting these houses and possessing people. And this teenager and his friends are trying to like uncover it. They have a few kind of creepy encounters with the neighbours who are possessed by this thing, and yeah, there's a few sort of creepy shots around the house and things like that. A bit of kind of teenage drama nonsense thrown in. It kind of, I think it describes itself as like a Goonies coming of age film. I would not say it's like that at all, but it's a pretty good little creepy supernatural movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. Next up we have XX. This is an anthology movie, 4 segments I think, all made by female filmmakers. Pretty good segments. I like them all. The first one though really left me hanging. I was really intrigued as to what was going on, and it just ends and it's like I really needed to know more of what was going on. I've been thinking about it ever since I watched it. It's been playing on my mind, which I guess is effective. But yeah, I really needed a bit more closure. But yeah, again, another pretty standard but enjoyable anthology film. If you like anthologies, I don't think you will dislike this one too much. And last up for this month, I picked up Zombievers, which is definitely the best horror film I've ever seen based on Zombievers, I can tell you that. But yeah, these, again, more teenagers drive out to a cabin by the lake and are attacked by these Zombievers that have been affected by toxic waste. So, very silly film, as I'm sure you can imagine. It is a fun one though. It's got some really good practical effects. The Zombievers themselves, the Zombievers, are mainly practical, and I really applaud them for that. There's some good sort of mechanical puppetry effects in this one. So yeah, don't go into this one taking it seriously, which I don't know why you would with a title like that anyway, and you should have a lot of fun with this one. So that's everything that I got in the month of March, guys. As always, let me know what you think of those pickups. Any that you liked, any that you particularly didn't like, let me know. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.